Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're expecting Trustee Maroney to arrive at some point in the evening. He had a train from the field, and I think he's on his way back, and he's probably about 45 minutes on a gravel slope at this point, so he'll get here when he gets here. Does anybody have any items to add to the agenda, or if not, a motion to approve? Moved by Brian, second by Elmer. Discussion, all in favor, carried. We have the minutes, it says of July 9th, I think it probably means August 27th. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve. Moved by Jeff, second by Elmer. Discussion, all in favor, carried. We have a delegation and a special report tonight. In the delegation, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Walney, President of the Website Teachers Association. And Jennifer, you'd like to come and join us? That'd be great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Things have been happening so rapidly, so quickly. It's difficult sometimes to do anything more than that. But however, I had some time today to really think about real estate teachers and what it's meant for them these last few months and even years. So I thought about teachers in the present, I thought about teachers in the past, and I thought about our teachers moving forward in the future. So currently, for real estate teachers, I think what we're looking at is ratifying, or possibly not ratifying, an agreement that was agreed upon in committee between BCPC, the government's bargaining team, and BCTS bargaining team. And teachers tomorrow will vote. And as they cast their ballot to vote, they're going to be thinking about the past. And that past for some of them could be years ago, it could be last year, or it could be the board meeting of July the 9th. We had a meeting on the 9th. There was approximately 20 members who attended that meeting, our team members. And those members represented every school in the district. There were primary teachers, intermediate teachers, junior class teachers, senior class teachers, teachers who are at the beginning or the middle or the end of their career. And they came here and let the trustees know our stories. And you could see the angst on the faces of those teachers at that meeting. And 20 teachers approximately represents 25% of our membership. Many teachers would have come beyond 20, but the date didn't work for them. So teachers told their stories. We heard teachers tell this board that they had classes that were difficult, extremely difficult. And why was that? Well, we've had classes in this district that have had too many students. We've had classes in this district that are split grades or 2 different subject areas. So you need different curriculums. We've had classes in this district that have children who are coded, which means they have a cognitive or emotional or a physical issue. We have classes in this district who have RT members or educational assistants helping within the class, but it's not enough time. The teachers cannot meet the needs of all those students. So what does that mean? Well, we heard stories from teachers who are saying, in order for me to try to accommodate all the needs and deliver what needs to be delivered for our education, they're working before the bell rings, recess, break time, lunchtime, after school. And they're getting burnt out. And they can't do it anymore. We heard teachers tell their stories to this board that they've lost their joie de vivre, their joy of teaching. And they're not able anymore to sponsor school clubs, or to help with the school activity, or coach a team. It's just not there for them anymore. They can't do it. And we heard teachers tell us that they feel they're being disrespected and undervalued. So that ballot tomorrow is going to be influenced by what's happened in the past, right here. So what about the future? Well, in the immediate future for our teachers, if the vote is yes and it's ratified, you're going to have teachers going in all weekend long to get classes ready. Because there's not going to be enough time without students to do everything that needs to happen. Meeting with colleagues, meeting with administration, meeting with QP. setting up, organizing, preparing, planning. It's not enough. So as you drive by a school at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night and the lights on, think of your teachers, because that's what it's going to be. They're going to be in there getting things ready the best they can, because they want a great first day. We take pride in what we do, and we want it to go well. But beyond just this immediate future, what about the future for teachers in Yellowstone? Well, in my opinion, we've got teachers who are going to remember the past. It's going to influence how they view the future. And they don't want to go back to a time of uncertainty, of turbulence, of feeling disrespected. And it's my hope that this board will help to stop all those things that many, many teachers in this district told you is happening to them. I also believe that teachers here across the province want to have a time where they can actually teach, where they can do what they do best. It is a give and take. We teach children, they learn from us. But they teach us too, and we learn from there. And that's what we want. They would like to have a time where it's calmness, they can focus on their jobs. So I also hope that this board, the teachers, parents, students, the community at large, all work together to make this district deliver the best public education we can in BC. Questions, comments?
Sure, thanks very much, Jennifer. And I see yesterday's announcement of, and then the next few days, it's been a real celebration. And what we have had is we've had 20 months of negotiations, and both parties right from day one saying what we really need to achieve is a freely negotiated collective agreement, and that's what's happened. And so both bargaining parties worked very hard through the weekend. I can definitely attest to that. Put in some long hours, a lot of back and forth, a lot of efforts to get additional resources. And the end result is what everybody said from the start, is a freely negotiated collective agreement with additional resources being provided. And so I see this as a very, very positive sign for the future. We have a six-year contract, of which one is retroactive, so we've got 5 years of labor stability, and it's a chance for us to just focus on educational matters. The issues that you raise in terms of the classroom situations and support, I think this board has always prided ourselves on what we've been able to provide in the areas of classroom support. I know Mike's done a lot of work in terms of, and it's no secret that with the Learning Improvement Fund, which is now being sort of combined with what's called an education fund, there'll be even more resources. And maybe just ask Mike to talk a little bit about some of the supports that you see and some of the class sizes. And again, that's not taking away that teaching is always a difficult profession, always a challenging profession. You always have a lot of every class has individual needs that need to be addressed. And so what we're trying to do is provide the best resources we can. And I'd just like Mike to maybe offer a few comments about some of our classroom situations.
Yeah, I can for sure. I first want to say thanks very much to Jennifer for articulating that so well for us, for everybody here. I think it really is it's a good summary of kind of the 20 months and more of what we've kind of been going through, and of course looking forward. And then to say I would fully agree and echo your comments in terms of how hard our staff work, and to say that would not be a bit surprised that any Saturday you find teachers in our schools, and this Saturday and Sunday you most certainly will. And the results of that have been outstanding. I mean, we rank in the top in terms of graduation rates and things that are being measured. But more importantly, we've been able to, I think, do that in a small community and with support for each other. And I recognize that, and I know the board has had that as feeling owning a piece of that, and should feel pride in that. And this lasted a while. It's been very difficult to feel pride in the province when we're looking at as if we're fighting for money. And this board has never come out and said, with this Revelstoke doesn't need more money. The advocating at the provincial level wound up in a tremendous asset in terms of $50 million, in terms of the buildings, etc. But ongoing through BCSDA, the board has been lobbying government for increased funding. sometimes it results in more funding, and probably most times it doesn't. And yes, we're in budget struggles, but where we're going with that is ensuring we're maintaining the supports of classrooms as the very best we can. To that end, I agree, there are some classes, Jennifer, that have been larger. You know we know our class size averages, they're public. We know our class size averages last year at kindergarten were 16, and at primary 20, and at the secondary school 22. There were classes at the secondary school last year with 30 students in them, but there were also senior classes with 14 and 15 students, and we know there's a check and balance there. And by no means has this board ever said that's good enough, we accept that, we tell the government we don't need any more money, because no, we don't want that class at 30, even if it is a PD class or a band class. We want to be able to sustain those classes, and looking at projected enrollment for grade at the high school and for the high school staff, looking to see our classes once again in the math department, the smallest class is 14 and the largest class is 28. And we will have that range with our numbers, and we don't want the 28, but we know we need it to sustain the 14. And so those are balances and checks that we've been making. We know the learning improvement dollars that you're referring to have been going to student services. In terms of, there's been a lot of discussion about the language that was stripped and taken from back in 2002. And annually we've been reporting on our staffing, and we'll do it again this year to say what our non-enrolling ratios are. And you know that we are, well, those of you who don't know, but you read and find out, and we'll see again this year, that our non-enrolling ratios remain either at or better than the ratios that we had in the 1998 to 2002 range. Learning support teacher, as an example, the target was 1 to 247, and once again this year we go 1 to 125. We've got 4 full-time learning support teachers at the high school for under 400 students. That's not to say we've got enough yet, and because Jennifer, as you pointed out, that is extremely challenging. I think the job has changed, the teaching job has changed, the classroom continues to change, and it is challenging, and it's hard work. And it's true, there will be teachers that will be really struggling tomorrow, and they struggle to maintain that, what did you say, joie de vivre, thank you for helping me. But I have a tremendous amount of pride, as I know you do, in the staff that we have, and these are people that will continue to work hard and do the very best for all those students. I'm tremendously proud of them.
I do not want to have another situation where we have teachers come to this board telling their stories.
Well, that's, I think, the point of the 6-year contract, is that when they came was when we were in strike activity in the summertime, and that's hopefully going to be resolved over the next couple of days.
But the classes they were dealing with could have been 5 years ago. So again, I ask not to have a repeat of that situation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Any other questions or comments from trustees? Jeff?
Well, we get reports like this every year about the school, and I know the board is totally impressed with both the academic achievement and so on, as well as this list of school events and activities and so on. It's really amazing how much you have to go.
Oh, there's lots that goes on, but it's sometimes at quite the cost of the teaching.
I think the board members can comment on that every time, so I think we can feel appreciated for doing that.
I just hope everyone rediscovers their passion. I know it's something like, that you think down the road, like I put all this time in. I have a bad cold, by the way. All this extra time and whatever, but it is appreciated by parents and by us. And I'd say the average person in Rostock. So take heart and rediscover your passion, please.
Well, given the right working and living conditions, that can happen.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Will there be time for our team members to ask questions, make comments, or will that be at the end?
At the end.
At the end,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have a special report. Todd, if you want to come join us, and it's the postponement from last spring, the 2013-14 Narrow Heights Elementary School annual report. And so, Todd, I understand that you'll just make a few comments.
Yeah, I'll keep it very brief this evening, if that's okay with everybody. I understand everybody's gone through the report. I'm sure you've did bedtime reading and memorized it. What I'd really like to start with is just commenting on and sort of echoing Jennifer. It has been a very difficult past few months for all of us in the education sector. And personally, I would just really like to pass on my thanks to the staff that I work with and the professionalism that they have displayed over the past 2 months, both in the new job action as well as even while they're out on the line. So my thanks to them, and I'm really looking forward to having them back in the building as soon as possible, and so that we can be moving forward. I also this evening want to send my thanks to the PAC, but more specifically to the City of Revelstoke. As most of you know, we've been advocating for better transportation or transportation lines, I guess, for our students. And if you haven't been up in the Arrow Heights area, we have an absolutely wonderful sidewalk coming up Nickel Road. And I think we're going to sit back and enjoy that, and then give the city a little bit of resting time, and we'll start hounding them about the hill next. Also, a huge thank you to my PAC as well for the additional playground that we put in this summer. Really looking forward to having more kids. We've had a few kids in the last 2 weeks climbing on it, but and already I can just see the excitement. And you know, when kids arrive, I think it's a great location. They're arriving to the school, and here we are. It's a great fun place. It's going to be a super place for families with younger siblings as well, while they're waiting to pick up their siblings. So as part of that, I really want to pass on a thanks to the Columbia Basin Trust, who provided a large chunk of our funding, as well as to Revelstoke Credit Union. And a personal thank you to Ian Tom, one of our parents, who's put in a huge amount of hours to make sure that project happened. And as well as to Indigo Landscaping, who showed up at the 12th hour to really help us kind of make sure things were in place for us. So my thanks on that. So again, looking forward to 2014 on that one. And then just lastly, just sort of as a comment and finish up in our report, our 3 areas that we'll be focusing on again this year around literacy. If you've read through the report, you'll notice that one area that I'm really hoping to highlight with staff on is the area of boys and reading. Last year I had 2 staff members do a young readers inquiry project around reluctant readers, and we focused in on a male student as part of that project. And as part of the data and information, we started looking a little bit broader than just that one student. And really what I noticed looking through the data at our school is when the boys are hitting intermediate grades, we are seeing quite a discrepancy between the girls' level of reading versus the boys. So I'll be working with staff to look at some strategies specific to helping those boys maintain a passion for literacy. And then we'll continue on with our work in numeracy, particularly looking at the upper intermediate grades and the discrepancies we continue to see around our results in that area. And as well, our final goal around student well-being. And again, now that we have some grade 7 data out of the MDI, looking to see what are some of the changes resulting from, where we're seeing some, in particular, is it truly a growing up item where kids are getting less connected to school, and what we can do to strengthen those bonds. So again, I just really want to thank the board for my short few minutes to highlight what a great school we have up in Arrow Heights. As I say, looking forward to getting started this year.
Thanks, Todd. Any questions or comments for trustees? Mike, any comments?
Yeah, I would just add, I'm pleased to see, and I won't miss the opportunity to bring up the goal on health and well-being, and your mentioning thought of the MDI and the importance of engaging students in those conversations about and I know you're doing that with the 7s you did last year, and you're going to do it this year specifically with their MDI data. And just how I think there's an interesting evolution that's happened, and this speaks a little bit to what Jennifer is referring to in terms of the additional changes in the classroom. We take on more responsibility in the classroom for beyond literacy, numeracy, and the health and well-being is exactly one of them. We're no longer saying, well, you're not with your goal, saying, well, students aren't getting enough sleep, no, we can do about that. In fact, you're attending to it and trying to do something about it, and that's an important piece of the MDI data that you're using to be getting, and then drawing on other resources and education to help the parents to understand how they can better support their kids. It's not just about reading with them at night. It's well beyond that for health and wellness. So I'm glad that you're continuing to work on that. And also just to say, it seems like a long time ago last year, but the energy on your playground is fabulous. You're in your staff room, which has rarely got anybody in it because everyone's in the classrooms working. And busy, engaged with kids is really quite outstanding. It's a small school with a lot of energy, so it doesn't feel like a small, quiet place. It's a small, energetic place. So congratulations and thanks to the staff.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And I would just echo those comments and add one more thank you, and that's from School District 93. And we see Roger Hebert frequently, who's the trustee representing this area for the French school, and he always talks about how welcome the students and staff feel at Arrow Heights. They feel like you've really worked them into the sort of the heart of the fabric of the school, and he always just thanks us so much for the atmosphere that you're creating for their school.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Todd.
We'll be glad to be back next week.
Keep it going.
Okay, next we move to the superintendent's administration report, right?
Okay, I'll highlight 246, 6 or 7, and then if I have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. I'd just like to acknowledge the retirement celebration that took place at Hillcrest on August 28th. We recognized seven, I was going to say 5, but we heard from 5. 7 retirees, Vivian, Lori, Lorna, Brenda, and Earl all took the opportunity to thank their peers and and ex-retirees for coming in for the express their excitement for being retired. And the Hillcrest actually was just a really nice spot to meet and mingle. It turned out to be a really nice event. So it was a change from our big room at RSS, and used that. You mentioned the Conseil de Francophone. I had a meeting with Bruce regarding the extra space that the Francophone authorities asked for. I understand from Todd today their enrollment maybe is down a little bit, so they were looking for a space from us. We think they might still be looking for an additional space, but maybe their enrollment isn't quite what they thought it was going to be, so we're just waiting to hear on that. And meeting with Andy Dawes, and once again with Bruce to review the capital project work. I'm kind of jumping around down to number 9. There was a fair bit of capital work, and I just want to acknowledge the work that he did through the summer, and also a thanks, whether this was intentional or not, to the RTA. In many districts, work in the schools came to a complete stop because there was picketing throughout the summer, and so work such as the Columbia Park kitchen would not have taken place had that been the case for us through the summer. And so our schools are really in quite good shape considering the circumstances. And moving on to item number 11, I just let you know that we've got 20 total international students. We're really pleased with the Rocky Mountain Institute. I was meeting with Duncan McLeod regarding, of course, their plans for the first couple of weeks, because they were pretty nervous with not having school to come to. They've come so far. They did a great job of engaging the international students in a number of activities, but we've got 15 students from Rocky Mountain, from our Rocky Mountain partnership, and then Rotary, a short exchange student, a 13-week exchange, and a student from MLI as well. So that's the largest number of international students we've had. In the past, we've said 15, but we've just been experiencing such good success with them. And Duncan's been pushing us a little bit because we've got lots of students now requesting to come to Revelstoke as opposed to being placed here. But that's about the limit of what we're very comfortable with in terms of making sure that students have an integrated activity, so they don't become that group and they stick together. They're part of us, and that kind of looks to be about our limit. And I just want to also acknowledge the work that Andy Pfeiffer is doing in that regard. When that group started out with only 2 or 3 international students, it wasn't a tremendous amount of extra work, but maintaining that program is a fairly time-intensive activity, and Andy's doing all that work at the high school, and appreciate that. And I know Greg would echo me on appreciating that for sure. Being as it would be you, Greg, if it wasn't him.
Still be.
And at the bottom of the page, I just wanted to highlight and thank Jennifer for the continued communication. This has been very difficult, and our communication has obviously been different and has been limited. It was limited by the circumstances, but the fact that we're able to stay communicating has been really very helpful in terms of our relationships with staff. So thank you for that, Jennifer, and thanks for allowing me to do that too. And then item number 19, we got Michael with a tie on over here. Looking good there, Michael. For those of you who don't know Michael Howard, District Vice Principal Technology, is excited to get into schools and start talking about the iPad projects and mobile technology projects that he wants to facilitate in the elementary and secondary setting, but really primarily starting out in the elementary. There's been a lot of pressure the last little while from engaged teachers that are keen to get going on mobile technology, and we have not had the capacity to support them, and we do now, and so we're excited to be getting into that phase with Michael, so good luck. And then finally, just to say, and I think I echo Todd's comments, and being as I've got Ariel and Greg Where's Andy? Oh, Andy's not, sorry, I take my glasses off. Andy's not back there. To say thanks to the administrators and to the staff for the time we spent together on the picket line. I can tell you, Nia ran past, tried to hide from the picket line because he was very uncomfortable when he first arrived, not realizing really the very strong relationships that exist here, and the conversations that took place on the picket lines were exceptionally, were often very engaging, but were always respectful, and thanks to staff that made us feel very welcome in a time when it was very difficult, and I hope they felt like, staff felt like we were there in as much to support as we could as well. So again, with the relationships, thanks so much. So I take any questions on anything else in that report or related events.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions, comments from Mike? Jeff?
International students, are they from Germany mostly, or?
Not mostly, but Europe. We actually, Greg, 3 students from Mexico this year. 4 students from Mexico. Beyond that, and then, but
Switzerland, Norway,
Italy.
lots from Germany,
Yeah.
Italy, yeah.
And there's actually a little event going on tomorrow night for them. So if you were able to drop by the high school, Andy's doing an orientation session with them at the high school tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, right? Yeah. You go up and go meet them and say hi.
Anything else, Jeff?
The job placements, you advertise for teaching positions like that?
Yeah, we filled a number of part-time and, well, we just most recently just created another division at Arrow Heights Elementary, so that was the last of the full-time positions. And Greg's got a little bit of staffing still outstanding at the high school, but mostly, yeah, all finished. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is a request from the BC School Trustees Association for input regarding the school psychologists becoming members of the College of Psychologists of BC.
Sure. Yeah. The background information is all there for you. The Coles Notes version is described in the front, and that basically you see the history between the College of Psychologists of BC and the BC Association of School Psychologists. We've, of course, got Andrew Sykes, our school psychologist, so, and he is a member of the BC Association of School Psychologists. And what's been happening, as you see in the backup documents, is for a number of years, the Ministry of Education has been working to try to have the school psychologists recognized and licensed within the College of Psychologists of BC. And there are some significant differences in their training levels, but they have come to an agreement that would allow them a special license. And so what the Ministry of Education through Bill Standeven is asking BCSDA is whether or not boards support that. So I asked, I spoke with Andrew Sykes, and this had come up before. I can tell you that the feedback BCSD is looking for is, do we think that they ought to do, that Bill Standeven and the Ministry of Education should continue that path and make that partnership? And the answer is appears to be yes, that it's good for school psychologists, good for their association, and it brings to closure a long time disconnect between the expectations of the CPBC compared to the BC ASB.
So basically, we're looking for a motion to support.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, second by Bryce. Discussion, all in favor, carries. Thank you. Next, we have the disposition of surplus schools update.
Okay. I'll just keep marching along. And, again, a lot of the background information attached, just to highlight, is you're very familiar with this format. The Big Eddy Elementary School site, for the last little while, we've just been saying there's no change. There still is really no change, with the exception of the attached letter, which came from Don Hall, the managing trustee of Big Eddy Waterworks, and to engage the city in discussions regarding the long-term solution to Big Eddy Water. So, as I noted in there, we'll continue to monitor that, because of course that's the step that was missing in terms of us proceeding with any kind of disposition of that site. The Mountain View School site, Alan dropped off the application to the city for heritage designation last week. Yeah, it's gone, done. So that building is on its way to being fully protected. It's also on its way to being the site of a fairly substantial demolition. Should be starting around October 6th. Clearview Grinding was the successful proponent, and they will endeavor to take down, well, they won't endeavor, they will, but it's a challenge, to take down the building and leave the 1914 building standing. Earl Woodhurst is doing a significant amount of work in the building right now, because we're not able to just shut off the power and lights and knock the building down. There's all kinds of issues related to exiting and alarms and fire protection. Septic, there's a septic line running underneath it, so there's a huge amount of work to be done as the surrounding building's being taken down. And the other piece is different. We've updated you once with respect to this before, but just to remind that we're not touching the soccer field right now. Originally, the plan was to dig up the old central school foundation at the same time. And had we been able to be on a timeline where we thought we'd be turning more quickly to selling that property, we probably would have done that now. But what we didn't want is to turn that soccer field into a dirt pile and then have it sit for the next number of years while we wait for it to be developed. So we're just taking down the building and then leave the field intact. Elmer.
Yeah, I understood before there was sort of like an interest from some teachers to go ahead and look through some of the, I don't know, the rooms there or whatever,
Yeah,
like.
actually, Sarah started it. When we put all that stuff in there, we thought we were done, but Sarah rescued some really great stuff, and so yeah, that started the principals going back through and taking pictures in some cases, and yeah, so what we've done is, at this point, is anything that we had any question about that we were worried maybe we shouldn't be losing, our maintenance crew has moved it out of the old building and into the 1914 building, that will remain intact. So we're not losing things that we were worried that we were rushing into losing, even if some of it is really junk. But beauty's in the eye of the beholder, Sam, right? Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Man's treasure. Any other questions for Mike? Again, it just keeps moving along.
He's moving on, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next, we turn to Bruce for, well, the first one is on banking's, I'll just flip through all this Mountain View stuff. And I'm going to excuse myself because next item is related to banking services, and I'm chair of the credit union board, so I should leave. So Jeff, can I just ask you to chair next? And if you don't mind, you call me back when you're done.
Put an hour on now.
In about an hour, yeah. Okay, Bruce, what's the story?
You've got the overview in front of you, and I think this is the best avenue for the board, and would recommend that we extend the services to June 30th, 2015.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Anybody want to get a motion?
Make a motion.
Second it.
All in favor?
Yes, thanks, that's good, yeah, makes sense.
Okay, next I'll turn over to Bruce for the overview of the 13-14 audited financial statements. Bruce?
Chairman, you do have the memo as part of your package. But at the same time, I think it would be better if it went in conjunction with the presentation from our auditors.
Okay.
And therefore, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeff Johnson from BDO Dunwoody, and who led the team.
That's right.
And so I'll turn it over, and then the two will dovetail together.
Thanks. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Everybody's favorite part of the meeting. It's my
Audited financial statements,
or at least the most boring part of the meeting. Does everybody have a copy of financial statements?
Just the draft ones, because they had not, we didn't have, and that's why the public will get one right after the board approves it, because they're actually
Perfect.
still in draft form.
First off, just want to thank Mike, Bruce, and the staff for all the work they did during the audit this year. It made it go a lot smoother than the prior year, which it always did. So thank you guys for that. In regards to our report and our audit opinion, we've issued a clean audit opinion for the financial statements. What that means is those financial statements are free of material misstatements, which is a good thing. During the course of our audit, we didn't come upon any instances of fraud or anything along those lines, which is a good thing. So overall, statement of financial position, a couple of things in there. Cash decreased during the year as this is a result of you guys paying off some money on the schools that was outstanding that was built. And your payables were down for that same reason. Statement of operations, Bruce is going to get into a bit more detail, but overall there was a surplus for the year, which I'll explain. But financial statements look good. I'm not going to go into all 30 pages of it because we'd be here for a couple hours, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has on, any of it.
Now, I'm gonna assume you and Bruce are tag teaming, so Bruce, how do you want to carry on?
Bruce can go ahead and we can answer the questions after.
Sure.
Just generally, I think, as Jeff mentioned, we do have a surplus this year, and an appropriate surplus, and all unrestricted. And I just wanted to make it clear, I know I was worried because Jennifer said in the interview, as did Todd and the board, I came from a district that had a fairly significant surplus. I just want people to be aware it wasn't Bruce, the surplus magician, that made this happen. That in effect, there were 4 very specific and unique situations that all came together to create this sort of one-time situation. And Mike and I were going through, we had already planned on a significant surplus just to balance the 2014-15 budget because we were short. So with it, other than that, if you do have the overview in the memo, and I'm not going to go through what's already in there, but between the two of us, maybe we can answer any questions, unless Mike, you wanted to add anything as well.
No, that's good. I mean, except that, and I know the correct accounting term is surplus. Year after year, we call it contingency, and in terms of just maintaining that contingency, and I think this year we were talking about having a contingency of about 1.5% or something, which is essentially flying very close to the ragged line in terms of what a small district such as ours, if we have very little wiggle room into September when we get into actually enrolling, and Todd's example would be a good one at Arrow Heights this year, that we've had to add a division. Had we not had a contingency from last year to actually do that, that would have been, well, impossible. And so you call it surplus, I call it contingency. And it still is in the amount of basically the kind of dollar figure that we need in order to say if we had 3 very high needs, special needs students show up, or we had need for 1 more classroom, we're not gonna go into a deficit situation, we're gonna be able to handle it. And then it also gives us the opportunity during the year to be able to add resources when we know we need them, so. But I know you've got a little more detail on that, so that's my spiel on this.
I'll just add one comment since you brought it up, and
Yeah.
because we actually did say that in Bruce's interview, which was a bit of a surprise, and that our long-standing view on budget is that this year's budget should be spent on this year's students. And so if we were to come forward with something, we don't plan for services, and because that's not delivering the services that students deserve, but we do have to allow some sort of contingency, and we have a lot of, for example, when you look at a teacher teaching on call budget, you have to project what absenteeism is going to be like, and so you look at historical averages and you project, and sometimes that can be up or down. You look at heating, snow removal costs, and sometimes that can be up or down. So we, by law, have to have a balanced budget, so we always have a little bit of contingency, and also, as Mike said, to be able to add classes. But we want our budget as close to line as we can get, and I think on roughly a $10 million budget, I think the closest we got was around $20 one year, and that's a bit tighter than we wanted. But this year, again, there was a few things that happened that caused a bit more of a surplus, and so that money will be put back into services for students. Any other, carrying on with the presentation?
No,
If there's any questions, I mean, the notes, the financial statements, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll make another comment, and I guess I would thank the office crew here, and it's, because this was, I would say, as a challenging a year as we'd ever have in terms of the finances for the district for a number of reasons. One is that we're wrapping up the capital budget, and so in terms of the expenditures between sort of the regular operating budget and the special capital budget, and how items get coded and transferred and accounted for, has been a real challenge when you have your $10 million a year and your $53 million extra. Looking after all the books is a very challenging situation. We also had the situation with a couple crucial staff changes, with Barb Ross moving and Bruce taking over, and then with the retirement of Brenda Resnick and Carrie starting. So anytime you have staff changes in finance, it causes some degree of disruption. And then, of course, all the finances related around labor disruption causes, and changing government direction there also causes difficulties in terms of the finances. So I'm very pleased to see that the end result is a clean audit and everything is looked after the way it should be. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? And if not, my understanding is that what we do then is move to approve the 13-14 audited financial statements as presented. So can I have a motion for that? Elmer, seconded Brian. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor carried. And just before Jeff leaves, just let you know, your mother always asks me to let her know how you did, and you did well.
She's only to tease you, actually.
Jeff's mother is the chair of the shoe swap school board. So thanks very much for all of your services.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, you're
Thank you. Okay. So then, Bruce, you were mentioning about after they're approved, then they'll be ready for distribution.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as soon as we complete the regular meeting, I'll go upstairs, that's what I brought here. Plus I'll need some signatures from you and the superintendent.
Okay,
We'll get all that so people can have them when they leave tonight.
great.
A few extra copies.
Thanks very much. Okay, next we go to policy number 2.1, procedural bylaw. And this, actually I'll just give a little bit of an overview. And this came out of the July 9th board meeting where it became very clear that probably one of our procedures that we needed to change is that we do need to allow the opportunity at the end of the public meetings for an opportunity for people to ask questions on items that are discussed on the agenda. And so in order to do it in the proper manner, we need to introduce a policy procedural bylaw. Bruce has prepared something for us, and I'm asking that the board give first reading to policy 2.1 procedural bylaw. So moved by Jeff, second by Brian, discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you for preparing that, Bruce. Now we go to the Finance and Facilities Committee minutes of August 27th. Elmer?
All right, this is unusual that I have two sets of minutes here, so just bear with me on this one. That's due mostly to the financial statements here. Okay, the first one was August the 27th, where we took a look at bills outstanding in that, so I would like a motion that the bills paid for March and April 2014 for the amount of $2,190,769.02 be approved.
Seconded. Jeff, discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you.
Okay, and then going on to the bills for May and June 2014, I would like a motion to, that the bills paid for May and June for the amount of $3,208,001.10 be approved.
Seconded. Brian, discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you.
Okay, and updates on financial statements, we went through, well, we got mostly Bruce to explain a lot of things to us. And also took a look at some other details and, well, just financial stuff really. So do I have I'd like to move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Seconded by Jeff, discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you, Elmer. And then we have the minutes of September the 11th.
Okay, so September 11th. In this case, there's another little bit of housekeeping here that I'd like a motion to, that the report of the bills paid for July and August 2014 in the amount of $635,327.64 be approved.
Seconded by Brian, discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you.
Okay, another topic was, the Secretary Treasurer was very diligent in coming up with perhaps some potential savings. And I must congratulate you and your team and whatever, identifying like areas that we can work on to result in some further savings for the district. So congratulations there. Pass that on to the rest of the group also. Also, we went through the financial statements again, and I think you covered that up tonight really well. And from what I understand, the motion was brought forward earlier.
Yeah, so we don't need to. Yeah.
So in this case, I would like a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Seconded, Jeff. Just one item of discussion before we vote on that is the changes in district purchasing. One of the big initiatives of the provincial government over the last couple of years has been around shared services. And so it's been led by Joan Axford out of Saanich, I believe she is. And what she's been doing is looking at a whole number of areas, and it could be involving purchasing, it could be legal services, could be payroll, and what they're doing is having provincial committees to look at where there's opportunities to save money by sharing services around the province. And so purchasing is, of course, one of the primary ones where if you get more bulk buying, then you can also get some savings. And so I'm glad to see we're jumping on board with that, and again, it is an initiative that's being pursued very vigorously.
Can I just add too? Kudos to yourself for all the extra work and also the team upstairs and all the other participants for the financial statements.
Yeah.
Job excellent, and that was proved by
Yeah.
our clean audit there.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor of accepting this? Thank you. And then in correspondence, we have a letter from Cadwalader, and just basically on the Aboriginal Education Enhancement Agreement, and basically just a very complimentary letter, and I don't know if you have any comments to that, but it's nice to see that.
Yes, it's nice to get the feedback, certainly, and the quote actually, which is from Brianna Howe, that said, when Cadwalader and Colleen and Hannah were up to visit from the ministry, they were able to sit in on a talking circle at the high school, in the Avid Sport Log, and Brianna Howe was graduating said exactly that. I remember when it wasn't cool to have Aboriginal ancestry.
Do you want to just read the quote in case anybody?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember when it wasn't cool to have Aboriginal ancestry, but now I feel like it is. And that was very nice. It was very nice to hear that from a student that came all the way through our system and did remember that. So it's kudos to the Aboriginal support program and the work that's being done there. And Ariel's here and getting ready to take on some of that work next year. So looking forward to having her with it.
Thanks. So that brings us to conclusion of the business part of the meeting, and I would like to open the floor if anybody does have any questions they'd like to ask related to tonight's agenda. Open for any questions. No?
Oh, I
Okay,
have a question.
sure. Okay.
First off, in regard to Todd's report, two things. First, I wish it'd be on double-sided paper. But really, the reason I put up my hand was, I just want to say Alexandra, who goes to that school, is a testament to that. She was nervous. Todd led by example, and the staff, the other kids, have really embraced that group of kids from field trips, sports day, concerts, assemblies, everything. And the district sports day, she really associates herself as an Arrow Heights student. And it's not just lip service, like they really are a unit, and it's wonderful to see because it is a Ministry of Education to school.
Absolutely.
So Todd personally has made that, like she runs out of the Modern when she sees him.
Yeah.
Really good.
Towards her.
Toward, yeah.
Sarah, just before you
Note to self, walk on.
Sarah, just before you leave that topic, if anybody's not aware, there are 60 school districts in BC, and one of them is School District 93. They're different in terms of how they're elected because they are elected on a provincial basis, and then they have areas that they represent. But they are every bit a school district as is School District 19 Revelstoke. And we saw it right from day one as our job to make it as a welcoming and positive environment as we possibly can. So that's what we're hearing is happening in Arrow Heights. So I'm glad to hear that
Yeah,
reinforced.
absolutely. Yeah, that has been really great. And just back to Jennifer's very articulate, letter presentation. I think I speak for all teachers. I really do when I think we are hurt, and there has been a breach of. I don't feel the relationship is good anymore. Personally, with people it's good, but as a group, when I hear all the thanks for all the extra stuff, in reality, teachers don't think of those as extra. That's just what we do, recess and lunch. And I hate to grind the old axe, but when that 10% was taken from us, when we were locked out, that was really, really, really hurtful. And we have not forgotten, and it's not being mean. We all feel that. And when you thank us for all these extra things, they're not extra, they're what we do. And when that pay was taken away as a bargaining tactic, we didn't think that was cool, and nobody stood up and at this district, at this board, and said anything to BCPC or to us. And Elmer was really the only one who even said it upset him. And we haven't, that's still on our minds when we go back. And it's really hard to go back. I'm glad there's gonna be an agreement, but it's not done in our minds, and that the agreement ahead of us isn't that great, but, you know, I'm sure it will go through because we've been brought to our knees. I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, but we didn't get paid. Like, it's been hard. My kids, our kids, they've had to give up a lot, and it was for all the other kids. And we haven't forgotten the lack of support. The letters were very neutral. And that's just what I want to say.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
Does anyone have any response? You know?
No, I don't, you know, I think the opportunity here is for, you know, for people to either ask questions or make comments, and I thank you for doing that.
Right. Well, they're not reflected in the minutes either. I went back to the meeting, the big meeting when we were all here, and those comments, I took notes, but they weren't in your minutes. They're gone. And I wish that would be.
I just, that could be, and we will look into that a little bit in terms of how maybe other districts are able to handle that, but the challenge for us in that case was to have accurate minutes that reflected what people said, and in order to publish public minutes, there would need to be a feedback loop to send it out to say, is this what you intended, like this is what we recorded you as saying, and so at the risk of doing that incorrectly, and for the, practically speaking, whether we can actually do that, it was our feeling, and I think it's a feeling in other areas, that if you're here for the discussion, you hear what you hear the discussion, and if you're not here for the discussion, you can't try and capture that, and then have Jeanette type it up to become a part of public record for these meetings.
Well,
And that's the intent.
The easiest way to try to explain it, like when we have our minutes, this is an official record of what happened at the meeting, and it's mainly in terms of the reports, motions, and so these records get sent to Victoria, and basically the question part is not, because this is a sort of a planned agenda, and the question and comment is sort of unplanned. It's an opportunity to ask questions, but doesn't form the official part of the record of the
I guess you
business.
could have it as an appendix, and we have it on film every week too.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
So I have a
Thank you.
question.
Sure.
My presentation this evening, is it going to be reflected in the minutes? Because that was part of the agenda.
And generally speaking, if you submit, and this is where up to this point, a written submission that is your written submission, it is incorporated.
Yeah.
But in terms of trying to encapsulate what you said, then
We respect that the last couple of days, there's been a lot moving. Like, I know your original intent for what you wanted to talk to was changed as a result of negotiations that took place this weekend. And so the normal procedure is that when somebody comes as a delegation, they submit their a copy of what they're going to say, and then that's what forms the basis of the minutes. So that when you see, for example, the report from Arrow Heights, that comes, in the past, when you've come and made presentations, you've provided a written report, and that becomes part of the record. Yeah. So if you have your written comments, or if you'd like to look at them again and submit them, then that does become part of the record. But what I'm not aware of is how much of that you sort of spoke at the time and how much you had prepared. But your written comments, of course, as being part of the agenda, are welcome part of the minutes.
So I can send those to
Yes,
Jeanette?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'd look for a motion to move in camera. Moved by Brian, second by Jeff. Discussion, all in favor, carried. Thank you.